Welcome everyone to another Thursday evening live stream. Bitcoin continues to be quite volatile lately, so I want to take a look at a few different time frames to see what's going on. As always, I am going to start zoomed way out on the weekly chart to get a feel for the overall market and work my way into some more degen time frames, look at some levels I'm watching, some of my favorite indicators, and so on. With that, let's hop right over to the weekly chart here. You guys, not much has changed here in the last several weeks. I know I'm kind of a broken record at this point that basically as long as we hold above this green box here, I'm bullish. I am looking at this as our higher low of the trend, and I'm actually going to mention something about that, which is going to be something that a lot of people aren't going to like, especially if you're a moon boy or anything like that. I honestly don't think it's something to worry about at this point, but like I said, at this point, as long as we stay above this green box, I am bullish. On top of that, we also have this diagonal support here, this white line here. I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I still use diagonal trend lines, but on their own, I mean, I totally understand why a lot of people don't like using them because you have to adjust them and stuff like that, but I like them if they can get exact touch points. It's at least a little bit of extra confluence, right? So this little bit of this leg up that we had here, you can see we have, and I know I go over this every week, but one thing that I have when I'm looking at breakout plays, looking at trend lines, what I like to see is 3 exact touch points before a break. Before I consider it valid. If we only have 2 touch points and we come back and test that level, let's say this candle would have came down here like this, I would have heavily considered the fact that it was going to be a fake out just because it's only had 2 touch points before that. There and there, but it ended up holding absolutely perfectly, pinpoint accurate again, 3 touch points along this weekly trend line. So I think there is some validation towards this trend line here. So what I'm going to get into that a lot of people aren't going to like is what happens if we end up dropping this green box here. Basically, you guys know that when I'm looking at shorter time frames, I often refer to the STUBER fibs, which is the 786, 886 Fibonacci. And that's kind of what I look for if we actually lose a higher low support. So until a trend breaks, that's basically what I'd be looking for. And so you can see that here we do just have this beautiful trend, right? First of all, we had this downtrend where we set low, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. And you can see that when we end up finally breaking a lower high, that's when we got this beautiful run to the upside and the bull market started. Now what do we have? We have this high. That's obviously our low. Higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. So now that's basically just going over why I have this green box outlined. A very important structure level in my opinion as far as this run goes. If we happen to actually close bodies below this green box, again, guys, I have to be very clear about this. I do not expect this to happen, but as traders, it's important to be aware of all possibilities. And, last market cycle, I remember feeling like, hey, it's bull market on. We're going through all-time highs, et cetera, et cetera. And then COVID came out of nowhere, black swan event, market ended up dumping. Let's just take a look here, just from taking a Fibonacci. Speaking of that, taking a fib from the market cycle bottom to where we topped out there, and we filled that STUBER fib absolutely perfectly. So nobody was expecting that either, right? Yes, it was a black swan event, but just something to consider that it did not feel like we would get that type of a move, and we did. So just, again, moving forward here, if we lose that green box, something to consider is that could technically end up bringing us basically right back down to these levels down here. 786 would be around 28,000. The 886 would be around 21, 22,000, somewhere in there. So at this point, I really don't expect that. But right now, so as far as market cycles, this is very, very macro stuff here. Let's look at the entire cycle. Let's consider, actually, let me bring that line back up. On a macro time frame, this is our high. We never had a higher high until this point, so this is technically still our higher low. What happens now is if we can actually break above this red line here and set a new higher high, that would actually bring our higher low up significantly. And that's the way that I look at chart structure. And when I'm looking for STUBER fibs and that sort of thing, that's kind of how I look at structure before I'm pulling fibs and that sort of thing. So basically, if we can, I think that if we end up actually closing above this red line here and setting a proper higher high into all-time highs like that, that's where we're bumping that higher low from basically 15.5K up to 56K. So that is a massive jump on a structure, looking at a weekly chart and looking at basic structure like that. Yes, obviously, the run itself, this market cycle has its own set of higher lows and higher highs like I was just going over. But if we can actually set one more higher high at this point, it drastically changes the structure on the macro time frame here. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Let me know if you need that cleared up at all. But basically, if we end up getting another proper higher high out of this, that's where I think it's just green light for, I don't know, that's the point where I'd be expecting for us to actually smash those all-time highs. That's where that's where I would be expecting more so basically this type of price action. The up only season, buy high, sell higher, basically. Because here we had the same thing, basically, right? Actually, this one never, actually, we got a perfect double top there, basically. But once we started closing candle bodies above there, we ended up going for a rip. So yeah, basically, just as far as chart structure goes, I think that's a huge green light if we end up bumping up, taking that massive jump on a higher low on a weekly time frame like that. And let's just take a look at the indicators as always. Once again, we have this buy trend on the trend collection indicator lining up very well with my higher low green box here. So the good news is if we do end up dropping this upward sloping white trend line, even though it has 3 exact touch points like that, the good news is Bitcoin has done a great job of building support along the way, and we do still have this green box below us, so maybe we wouldn't end up getting a huge move, maybe some sort of a wick below, but as long as we're not closing candle bodies below that green box, I would still remain quite bullish. And in fact, I would love to find some sort of a swing fail where we get a fake out below that level, but reclaiming this box, man, that would be a juicy long opportunity in my opinion. So yeah, bringing up the indicators again. Another thing that I really like about this, let me just bring up the trend dynamic indicator, is that once again, you guys know one of my favorite strategies is looking for which way the W's are trending. And on the weekly time frame here, we've just been setting, we have our high W, higher high, higher high, higher high, higher high. So we have the W's just pointing out a very obvious uptrend for us, and that's just going, just corresponding with this buy signal here. So absolutely love to see it. Looking at the 4-hour chart here, just zooming in a little bit, something to be cautious about, and this actually predicted a fairly nice move depending what size of time frame you like trading on. But as far as the 4-hour goes, we did set this lower high W here. So this is just a little bit of a warning. The way I like to use these indicators is it's not necessarily a sell signal. Yes, you could zoom in and start looking for things on a shorter time frame. But just the fact that the W's change direction to the downside here is just basically something to watch out for, that, you know, hey, maybe we'll end up getting pushed to the downside sort of a thing. But you'll notice that I also have this yellow box here outlined, and this is going back to basically what I was just talking about with structure. Notice I took the wicks off the candles on this chart just to help outline structure a little easier. It's easier to spot it when there isn't a whole bunch of wicks in the way and stuff like that. But as far as this 4-hour trend was going, obviously we had this high, and then we set a higher high, bringing our higher low up to this level here. Notice I made it an entire yellow box here, basically this whole block here, this whole red candle before we ended up reversing and breaking these highs basically. So watching that box as support basically, that's the higher low that I want this current 4-hour trend to hold. You know, dropping structure like this, yeah, obviously we get some sort of a downside correction or whatever, but as far as the trend goes and structure, this is the important level that I'm currently watching as our higher low. And then from there, you guys know I love using Fibonacci's, and I just want to point out, I think you'll know where I'm going with this, but where we ended up bottoming out here, and why I think Bitcoin's still in a decent position here. Actually even has a W here, a reversal warning for the upside there. But let's just pull from my higher low here, and I do include wicks when I pull Fibonacci's. So let's go from this higher low here, which I just talked about, and pull to the high of this trend. Where do we end up finding support? No surprise to anybody who follows my streams all the time, is we found support. You can see all these candle wicks going right into that 786, 886 Fibonacci pocket. So the STUBER fib pocket with a bit of confluence with this reversal warning. Absolutely beautiful. So to see that nice little pump to the upside. And actually, another thing is obviously the fibs that I have for my take profits, right? TP1, TP2. As far as my STUBER fibs go, just because I think it's important to play the range until it breaks. So I basically treat every trade setup as a scalp with part of my position. So I have my TP1, TP2, that basically gets rid of half of my position. And then I like to leave the other half of my position run just in case it is a home run trade, right? Not banking on home run trades. Like I said, playing the range till it breaks. But if it breaks, I do want to still have some of that position open. So that's just an example. I do not have a position based on this. Usually I'm trading more so the 5-minute and 3-minute, 1-minute, stuff like that. But same thing applies, right? Structure works the same, whether you're on the weekly chart, the 4-hour chart, the 5-minute chart. It's all kind of the same as far as respecting structure. So beautiful to see that STUBER fib come into play. TP1 would have been here. TP2 was perfectly tagged. I usually front run my fibs a little bit just to be sure. But beautiful to see that also lined up with this structure back here and getting that lower reversal warning. So not too surprising to see a little bit of a rejection from that level. As it stands right now, when I play STUBER fibs, I personally give a lot more credit to the first test, and that's always the hardest one to catch, obviously. It's very easy to go back and look at this and be like, oh yeah, I can tell just from eyeballing it that this would be approximately a STUBER fib. So they're always a little bit harder to catch in real time. But the more you see it, obviously, the easier it gets to predict and see once you see those structure breaks and then waiting for the fibs to get that pullback kind of a thing. But so as it stands right now, I generally don't like to take trades a second time off those fibs. Not to say that it won't work out. I just find that first move advantage, it's just you're so likely to get some sort of a reaction to some of these other fibs. So not to say that I won't take any long positions if I see structure breaks on smaller time frames, like I'm trading the 5-minute very actively. So I don't want to say that, oh, I think we're bearish because we tested this again. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying to be a little bit careful because the more levels get tested, the weaker that they can get, right? So yeah, that swing is still holding beautifully as long as we're holding above this yellow box here. I guess I'm going to remain bullish. Just to take a peek at this, I'm actually tempted to take a little short again. Let me just think this one through. You know what? I'm gonna be too preoccupied here. You know what? Fuck it. Let's take a little short. I'm gonna have my stop loss just up here. And just to let you know, I was in a long this morning. I was mentioning to some of you guys before the stream here that I did catch that juicy long this morning. I actually took it last night right before bed. Sorry, just setting my order here. Order filled. Stop loss, let's do 68,777. So basically my reasoning for taking this short right here is I understand that it's late, and this is just a 3-minute chart, so take it for what it is. Basically, this is where we change structure on this little pump that we've had. That's where, you know, we set this higher high and again a higher high, higher low, break that level, and look at that, we just start dumping to the downside. So yes, I did absolutely miss the ideal opportunity to take a head short there. But at this point, I'm just basically looking to play the trend. You know, I'm trading shorter time frames anyways, so these stop losses are actually quite tight. But what I'm looking at right now, as far as structure goes on this little downtrend here, is that, you know, before this low, our current local low here, this was the low before that, which means that this is the confirmed lower high, basically. Again, very possible that this gets stopped out because it is a late trade. But what I'm looking at is basically this lower high structure here. I'm going to make a box on the whole green candle. So much like just before how I used a red candle to the downside before pumping, this is the opposite way. So I am going to make a box on this green candle before we end up breaking this structure here. So let's just give it something like this. I know trading the 3-minute is not for everybody. Basically, if we reclaim this yellow box here, that I'm looking at that as a break-in structure, so that's why my stop loss is just a little bit above this. And we close above that, yeah, we might see some sort of a pullback and whatever. Then we might just end up carrying back to the upside. That would actually make a lot of sense if we do break this yellow box, that we'd see some sort of you know, STUBER FIB pullback or something like that. I'd be more so looking for longs again, but as it stands, we haven't broken a lower high. All of this in here is basically just noise trading in between this high and this low. That's basically the range that I'm looking at right now for the structure reasons I just showed. Another thing that would make me want to go long is, let's say that we end up taking out this low here and setting a very slightly lower low. Let's just say theoretically price comes down here. And then again, like I was talking about with the weekly, let's say we set another very nearby lower low once again. That would actually make our lower high bump down quite drastically. And that's where you can get into some sort of a position with a very nice tight stop, right? Just above that structure. I'm making kind of a mess with my drawing here, but hopefully that all makes sense to you. But as it stands, as long as we're holding below this yellow box here, going to remain bearish on the 3-minute chart, right? Take it for what it is. Yeah, what can we get into here? Let's see what the indicators are saying here. Another reversal warning right along that resistance. The sell trend is having a hard time holding here. So we may actually end up getting a higher buy signal out of the indicators. And like I was talking about with the W's, just something I love to do with the indicators is just use it to spot a trend, basically. So which way the W's are trending, which way the buy signals and sell signals are trending. Let's see what the auto charting says. Here's another thing is we do have a lower low that came into play here. So even if we get some sort of a bounce to the upside, we may see some sort of a correction. Just something to watch for if we do end up blasting through this is, as far as the bigger range goes at that point, our range would actually be from here to here, right? And just looking for where we may end up getting rejected. I like to use wicks again for when I'm looking for Fibonacci's. So I'd be pulling from the top of this range to the bottom. And that's where I would be looking for some sort of a correction after we test these levels here. That's where I would kind of be looking for reasons to get into some sort of lower time frame short or whatever. That's just looking ahead to a potential STUBER FIB pocket setup, right? And that's why I said, like, the more I look at these, and same with you guys, I'm sure, the more you see something, the more you can be ahead of it, right? So yeah, we're absolutely nowhere near these levels right now. But it's just something to be aware of that, hey, if we break above this yellow box, then we're actually going to be in a bigger range rather than just this small one that I outlined. And that's where we can start looking for different Fibonacci pulls and stuff like that, right? But as it stands, yellow box still holding as resistance so far. I just want to zoom out a little bit here. I want to look at the 1 hour chart and explain, speaking of STUBER fibs, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this and why I took a long setup last night. So yeah, basically I have this green line mapped out here. Once again, no wicks on my chart just so that it's easier to see, but just to show you a prime example of how that structure works, right? Is, we had a low, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. So I outline that lower high with this green line here. We end up getting our close above that. That is confirming that there is a structure break, right? Because we lost this uptrend when we ended up closing below this higher low of this trend here, came down, end up setting that series of lower lows, lower highs, end up breaking a lower high. And that's where I just start to chase the price with my fibs, right? Because as I was talking about, just being able to kind of stay ahead of it, be able to predict what it's going to do next. It doesn't happen every time or anything like that, but that's just basically where I would start to then, we got our structure break. So I start to chase the price with my Fibonacci's. So at this point, I'm just, after this W here, just waiting to see when can we end up seeing some sort of a STUBER fib. Here we're going to just chase the price a little more and look where we end up pulling back to. No big surprise. I took a bit of a position on the 786 there, which is basically, that's why I call it a STUBER setup, right? It's my favorite trading strategy. So after that structure break, getting that pullback to that fib pocket, and that's why I ended up taking that long. TP1, again, the 0.5 fib. Got very close to my second TP, so I actually ended up closing the rest of it when we lost structure on a shorter time frame. I believe it was the 5 minute I was looking at the time. So I'm not actually in this long anymore. I just kept the dashed line here where my entry was, just to show you guys as an example of just a classic STUBER fib setup is all. It's not like it was anything lucky. It's what I teach every single week on these streams. My favorite setup right there. So that's what led me to take a long there. And yeah, so basically since then, what has happened with the structure? Let's kind of do the same thing, right? Is after we end up pumping, so let's treat that as a high, or this was our high, then we set higher high, higher high, this would be our higher low, we end up breaking that. That's where we can start then looking for rejection levels, right? So turn the wicks back on, pull Fibonacci from top to bottom because I'm looking for a rejection. Just start chasing the price. We actually never quite got there, so maybe we still will get a pump up here. Who knows? But that's the type of setup that I would have been looking for. Never happened, so whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, that's basically how I look at STUBER fibs. Does that all make sense? Hopefully I'm explaining myself clearly to you guys. And I know at least 3 of you guys are on these streams very regularly. So I'm sure it's getting repetitive, but honestly, I'm still not perfect at catching them either, right? The more you see something, the more you practice something, the easier it's going to get, the faster you're going to notice them ahead of time and stuff like that. I like to use skateboard analogies because I'm a boarder. So, I could tell you 1,000 times how to do a kickflip or a 360 flip or whatever. But until you have the muscle memory of doing it, obviously the more you do it, the better. The more you see it, the better. The more you're told about it, the better, right? So practice makes perfect. So let's just work our way back in here. Looks like we're still struggling with this resistance level a little bit. 5 minute actually ended up getting a reversal warning as well. And notice it is actually lower. Notice the W's here. On the bottom side, we have a W here, lower W here, and as well for the tops, we had a W here, lower W here. So just something to consider there. As far as chasing the trend, I love everything about that short that I just entered, just because, you know, we have this lower high resistance here. We have the W's trending to the downside. The only thing I don't like about it is how quickly we shot down here and how late I'm getting into the position. But that's why we have invalidation levels, right? Playing the trend and hoping to catch something a little bit later, because that's the thing is, a lot of times when people miss a big swing opportunity, they think, oh, I missed the move, I can no longer trade until the next reversal happens on the 4 hour or whatever. That's one of the reasons why I love scalping so much is, yeah, you know, I might lose this trade. That's a part of trading. You know, it's all about controlling your losses, having those tight invalidations and stuff like that. Just like any trader, absolutely I lose trades too. Everybody does. But yeah, that's just kind of a way that, hey, we can look at, you know, just recently this structure had broken, right? When we had this low here and we ended up breaking it, that's a new structure break. It just changed what range we were in, and now we're in this range here. So hopefully momentum's on my side. What was the price that I ended up getting in, actually? I will just make a line so that we can keep tabs on it. It was 68,455.2. So yeah, again, a little bit late, but we'll just see what happens with that. See what we're looking like with wicks and everything. Oh, we lost trading below this sell signal again on the trend collection indicator. The one thing that I will warn about this sell signal is I personally don't take, well, just like I was talking about earlier, is the main thing that I like to look for with using indicators is pointing out the trend. I don't like to take every buy, every sell signal or anything like that. I think it's, well, just one signal on its own is never enough for a trade, in my opinion. So that's where, you know, technically we have this sell, and yes, we have a sell here, but it was a higher sell. So I'm taking it based on structure. I'm not taking it based off this indicator, but I like to bring up the indicators as a little bit of confluence. So yeah, to see that we're staying below the sell signal, showing weakness, having these lower W's, stuff like that. Just a few things adding up that I'm willing to kind of chase the trend, right? Let's hop back into the 3 minute. Just because I like to get, you know, the more degen, the better. You guys know how I roll. Thump, I know you get it. Is anyone else in any other positions, by the way? Bitcoin, altcoins. I know we had talked about a couple. TIA, talked about an injective one earlier. I can actually take a look at TIA in a little bit here. The one thing is, when I'm trading these shorter time frames, it's a little scarier to jump around, because a lot can happen when you're trading, let's say, the 3 minute or the 1 minute. You know, a lot can happen in a couple candles, and that happens very quickly. But so far, you know, I'm liking what I see in here. So at least, even if this gets stopped out, you guys know what my reasoning is behind this, right? I'm not just taking a lucky guess at taking this position. There's absolutely structural reasons and stuff like that. And like I said, if I end up getting stopped out, we end up getting above this box. What did I say? 68777. So somewhere up here, I would end up being stopped out if that's going to happen. Also, if we just end up closing a candle body just above and we're a little shy of my stop loss, I'm just going to close it a little early. But like I said, I'm more of a scalper myself anyways, so I'll probably look to start scaling out of my position very quickly, probably in the next few candles, if we're sitting in some decent profits or anything like that. I wanted to take a look at a couple altcoins as well. More so meme coins. You guys know that I love that side of the degen side of things as well. A couple coins have caught my attention. One is Peng. I know we've talked about this in the group many times in the past, right from basically from when it was created, I guess, whenever it launched. I know a lot of us ended up catching this initial move. I think I caught an 11x out of it or something like that. But we basically ended up just forming this real tight consolidation down here. And I ended up getting back into a little bit of a Peng position, obviously just spot. And I'm still holding some. I did take some profits last night, but I only sold, I think it was about a quarter of it or something like that. So still holding on to a bag of this. Basically looking at this yellow line as holding support. This is the 1 hour chart. So if we start closing candle bodies below this, I might consider downsizing my position again. And even if that means buying back lower, right? One way of trading that I also like to trade, yes, obviously I prefer leverage trading Bitcoin. That's kind of my main jam. But I also like to do coin building when there's certain coins that I'm interested in just basically collecting, and ideally collecting for free. So that means basically I'm trying to sell when there's structure breaks and trying to buy back cheaper when the structure breaks the other way. So just basically trying to sell my position and buy back more without having to cough up more fiat, right? So Peng is one of those. Like I said, we hold that line. I'll remain bullish on it basically. Nubcat is one that's interesting because I know cat and dog meme coins, they're obviously a bit of a thing. And this is one of the more popular cat memes with over 37 million market cap. So it's not like it was just launched yesterday and it's $100,000 market cap or whatever. It's actually quite established. And like I was talking about trend lines earlier, I mean, I've had this mapped out for a few days now. And this is interesting. I might actually load up a little more for this reason that, yes, it is a diagonal trend line, but look how accurate these 3 touch points are here. Absolutely perfect. And then we end up closing above, coming back, and now we've just been retesting this old resistance as new support. So that's just looking decent in my opinion. Obviously not financial advice. These meme coins are obviously high risk, obviously dangerous. But as far as meme coin goes, I mean, I'm liking what I see in the charts there. So I will actually be buying a little bit more spot nub after I make this video here. Another one, I have talked about this one quite a bit in the past. Okay, this is going to look messy right now, but hear me out here. This is very high risk. This is only a $200,000 market cap, a good proper micro cap here. Again, a cat meme coin. It's on the Base network, which I've been really liking using Ethereum once again because fees are reasonable when you're using the Base network. So basically, the reason that this one caught my attention is because I have used some of their products. I have minted NFTs from one of their collections. They have a very unique token NFT hybrid system. Very easy to swap NFTs. I've never had that before with anything else because I have had other NFTs that have been for sale for half a year to actually over a year at this point with absolutely no bids. What you can do with this is basically swap them very easily because it's tied to a token value as well, right? And as well, though, some of the NFTs that I had minted that I wasn't a huge fan of, I was able to unload those real quick and swap them out basically for some that I liked a little bit more. So I just thought that was very interesting. And like I said, as far as a meme coin goes, they're actually building something, which is interesting. But also something caught my eye with the chart yesterday. So all these yellow dotted lines are going to be basically where I have a low or a lower low, and then followed by the solid line, which is my confirmed lower high. And on this trend, notice that we never did break out of any sort of lower high structure. I've just spent how much time going over that type of structure. And just notice how this chart, we just get, lower low, lower high, lower low, or sorry, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. Another lower low would have been basically, actually, would have been right here, but that wouldn't have actually changed our lower high until we got here. Then we have our lower high, then another lower low and lower high. And notice that's the very first time in this chart's history that lower high was broken. And notice I made that whole block once again. I actually made it green because we had actually reclaimed it here, and we're even retesting it now. This is not to say that this has to be the end of the downtrend or anything like that, but this is the first time that we've had that sort of a structure break. And since it's such a low market cap, I just don't mind tossing a few bucks at it, basically. Again, very high risk because it's very low market cap. Anything can happen with these. But that's kind of just something interesting that I thought with this chart and the project as a whole. So, just want to... the name of this one, this was Chonk. It's on the base network. So I actually got it on Uniswap on the base network. Nub was, that's a Solana one. That was on my Phantom wallet. Peng is actually at several places now. I think the first time I bought Peng, it was on the Phantom wallet. I think it's on MEXC. It's definitely on BingX. It's definitely on a few exchanges now. So that one's a little bit bigger and $60 million market cap. So that's not even a micro cap at this point. Let's see here. Just flipping back to Bitcoin quick to check on things here. Should I consider downsizing my position a little bit? I am actually tempted to. Let's hop way into the 1 minute. You know what? I'm going to have an order ready to sell half of my, or close half of my short here, rather. I'm currently sitting at a 4% profit. I'm not going to close it quite yet. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to bump my stop loss up to break even at this point. Just in case I stop paying attention or anything. Then I have nothing to worry about. Can focus a little bit. Whew. See what happens here. These 1 minute candles, I mean, that can change very quickly. And especially when you don't have the wicks on, so the candle totally disappears quickly if it reverses. It's kind of funny watching them with no wicks on, actually. Interesting. Auto charting tools on the 1 minute starting to show higher low and higher high. Another thing that I really like to do, you know, talking about STUBER fibs and stuff like that. I know I've said this on a few videos, but or a few streams at this point, but sometimes I like to use that tool just to confirm STUBER fibs as well. In what I mean, basically taking a fib pull from one of these outlined reversal points up to the next one, and boom. So it really would not surprise me to see us end up testing this STUBER fib pocket down here. That would be totally normal. Actually, if we get down here, I am going to close half of my position if we end up getting to, we'll call it 320. Let me just set an order there. I'll just do quarter of a position, actually. So that will be 68,322. I don't like using even numbers. And that will be close short if we get down to that level. And again, stop loss is at break even anyways. This all making sense so far, you guys? You can see just how often I bring up those Fibonacci's. Really, as far as trading goes, I mean, yeah, we can have, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we do have the best indicators in the world here. I don't know, I absolutely love these indicators. The way they look, the way they function, just love them. But at the end of the day, they are just indicators, right? I strongly believe that the most important part of trading is just basic structure, horizontal structure levels, and Fibonacci's. So powerful. Yeah, we might not actually hit my target. We'll have to see. We will have to see. The only thing concerning me about this short at this point is obviously we had this break in structure, right? This is very micro analyzing here, but as far as this little trend here goes, we obviously had this low, lower high, which has been broken above, and we're actually holding that as support right now. Hoping to see it drop off a cliff here, as anybody in a short would love to see. But let's just see here. I'm just going to leave this chart up right now. One thing that I like to do, like you guys know, as far as entering the position, I was more so looking at the 3-minute, 5-minute, stuff like that. But then I like to actually zoom into shorter time frames, and when things start to reverse a little bit early, because obviously the shorter time frames, it's going to happen quicker. So quite often, if let's say I enter a position on a 5-minute, I'll go down to a 1-minute when I'm looking at, hey, any reasons why I should be getting out of my position at this point. So right now I'm really contemplating manually closing a quarter of my position as well. But we're just gonna see. Basically, if we close a 1-minute candle above this this high here. You guys pushing the market on me here, or what's going on? You know what? I'm closing a quarter right now. Only about a 3.5% profit there. But just in case we don't actually make it to my targets here, now at least I've closed a small bit of my position and have my position or my stop loss at break even. So at least that way I know my fees and everything like that are covered, and whatever happens at this point, unless there's some crazy slippage, I really shouldn't lose any money at this point. But yeah, what I would love to see now is obviously losing this level once again. I don't know if we're going to get it. Looking at the indicators, yes, this is only the 1-minute. Technically have a lower sell signal as well as lower buy signal. So things are kind of trending to the downside a little bit here. Just bouncing around a little bit here. Anything unclear with the market structure or how I pull my fibs or anything? I know a lot of people only like to pull Fibonacci's one way. I personally like to pull them both directions. Basically, if I'm looking for resistance, I'm pulling top to bottom. If I'm looking for support, I'm pulling bottom to top. And usually I'm waiting for some sort of a structure break before I pull those fibs, right? I'm not just taking any 786, 886 Fibonacci pull, you know, from a random pivot point or anything like that. It's always, notice I'm always pointing out some sort of a structure break before I'm pulling those fibs. So like this, for example, you know, if you were looking for some sort of a very tight scalp setup, you know, let's just say, hey, on this little run here, hey, we broke this lower high setup, so then I'm going to pull a Fibonacci, something like this, but I would be using my wicks, obviously. And since I'm more interested in the short right now, I'm not taking that as a long. But that's just an example of how I look at that structure, right? Actually, I'm curious. I'm very curious if that will play out at all. Notice where we're getting some sort of a reaction here. if it gets back up to this level, yeah, it's obviously a very small range, but depending what size of range you're trying to play, obviously your take profits might be closer than you would like. But if we even get back up to this level at this point, that would technically be TP1 hit for this type of a setup. Just look at that immediate reaction out of that pocket, hey? Even if it doesn't play out, you can just see that there's obviously interest there. And there it goes. That would have been TP1. See if we end up hitting TP2 as well. Again, I'm in the short, not the long, but it's nice to watch these with you guys live playing out and how I look at trading them. And like I said, obviously this is a tiny range, but it is what it is. If you're pulling fibs on a very small range and you decide, oh, I'm not taking profits at these levels because that's way too close, and then you end up losing the position, that doesn't mean the setup or the strategy failed, right? It might just mean that you were being greedy and you were playing too small of a range for what you were looking for. How many of you guys, like, what's your main thing that you typically like to look at? Do you mostly rely on indicators, mostly chart structure, mostly Fibonacci's? Like, what do you guys typically like to look at when you're picking your entries? You know, I might put that little order in for nub right now as well. Nice. I'm hoping this dumps off a cliff because I really want this short to carry on. Maybe I'll wait till after the stream. But yeah, I'm definitely planning on buying a little more nub here. Just because we're respecting that line so well, right? Like I talked about, those touch points are just absolutely perfect. Perfect. Pinpoint accurate wicks and everything. Followed by, even on the other side, pinpoint accurate on the wicks. Absolutely beautiful. As far as breakout trading and trading chart patterns, that's kind of what I look for. Yes, just like any trade setup, it's not going to be perfect. But rather than, you know, let's say we never got this third rejection here. Let's say that, you know, we had our one, our second touch point, and then we just did this without testing it at all. I would kind of be under the impression that we're just basically getting rejected at this lower high, maybe some sort of a STUBER fib, and then just going to flip that back into resistance. But as it stands, you know, 3 exact touch points, respecting it from the other side. There's obviously a lot of respect going on there. Oh yeah, here we go. I'll get that original. Where did I have that fib? Oh, 320, boom. Hit that that quarter TP as well. So now I actually only have half my position left at this point. Glad I was able to catch something live with you guys. That's always exciting. Even if it's a small trade like that. But yeah, absolutely beautiful. And again, it's not like it was getting lucky or anything, right? It was just looking at this structure. We have not broken a lower high because, like I said, low, lower low, lower high. So as long as we're below that at this point, that's where it is. If we end up dropping below this level here, then our lower high would actually be here because that would be the highest point between the two, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, again, just look at that. Again, I'm hoping this doesn't hold because obviously I want my short to keep running. But just, again, just an obvious reaction right off that 786, right? So you're starting to see, I mean, especially those of you who are in these streams every Thursday, you're obviously starting to see why I like that fib pocket so much. I mean, it's just, it's crazy. I'm going to say it's magic. Obviously it's not, but And then as far as structure goes as well, this is, again, very micro analyzing here, but let's just say this little range here, very micro analyzing. Where did we end up bottoming out before breaking above this structure here? I'm going to make a box on that red candle, just like I was doing before, because that's kind of our block of where we ended up finding support before taking on higher. I'm going to turn trend collection back, or trend dynamic back on, just so I have wicks. And notice that that also lined up in that yellow box. So that's another thing, right? Is so often those order blocks line up beautifully with the STUBER fibs. So if you're looking for a little additional confluence, I mean, that can quite often be the case. Since we don't have an actual structure break here, because this wasn't, I'm not considering this here a lower high by any means. So the fact that we broke it, I'm not taking it all too serious, and that's why I'm not really looking for a long at this point. But yeah, beautiful how those can line up so often. Holy, time flies when you're having fun. We're actually coming up on an hour here. Is there anything in particular you guys want me to look at? I was going to keep this one a little bit shorter anyways, a smaller crowd. But yeah, if you have any requests, altcoin requests, questions about how I'm looking at things, maybe you don't understand why the heck after looking at all this, you're still not quite understanding why I took that little short there, by all means, hit me up. So now, for example, would be, even on the 1 minute here, you guys just looking, really breaking down this structure, because I think it's so important. Here we have a low. Our lower low is down here. What's the highest point between the two would be right here. So that's technically our lower high on this very micro trend here. So we start closing 1 minute candles above that, then we can consider the possibility we're going to go higher again. Obviously here it never played out. But that's totally fine. It was actually, here's one of those times where, hey, we broke our lower high structure here. This goes back to what I was talking about with the weekly before. Then we have this high here, another higher high. That actually brings our higher low up to here. We end up losing that, and then we just dump to the downside. Yes, very micro analyzing, but the structure is there, right? Once you look at this shit enough, you just see it everywhere, right? Just curious, did any of you guys take that short? A little scalpy scalp. In a short for target, 67.8 on the 5 minute. Uh, 67.8, so you're just out of curiosity, was that what I think it is? Yeah, 67.7-ish would be getting really close to my 786. And also depends what exchange you're looking at, right? Every exchange, the price could vary very slightly. very. But yeah, I think it's absolutely possible we get down there. And that's one of those cases where if we get down here, I'm absolutely going to be taking more profits off that position. If it survives that long, right? I might get stopped out at break even on the other half. That's totally fine. But yeah, I think it's plausible. If we end up breaking back above this yellow box, then I think it's absolutely possible we go quite a bit higher once again. Like I said, if we do end up climbing, I'd be looking at some sort of a STUBER fib pulled that way, possibly find resistance somewhere in here. But as it stands right now, as long as we're holding below this yellow box here, the trend is to the downside on this little rally. getting back to that lower high structure that I was just talking about. And just out of curiosity, oh, it looks like we would have got above it already. Oh, actually, and I need wickaroos. We are trading right at the 886 resistance right now of this little rally here. And, you know, that actually works out perfectly, just having that Fibonacci. The reason I have my 115 Fib is just kind of my approximate invalidation level when I'm looking for, you know, if I can't think of a reason to take or to pick a stop loss or something like that. That's kind of a rule of thumb. It's just there to remind me to leave some wiggle room, basically, above whatever structure I'm looking at trading. So the fact that my break-even stop loss is a little bit above that too, with a little extra wiggle room there, I'm happy with that situation. Do I also look at wick fills? Yes. We have one above at the middle of the wick, 69.9. Oh, I'm on the 1 minute still. Wait for my wicks to come back up here. 69.9. Oh, 68.9. I was wondering if that's what you meant, because I noticed this guy right here. That's what you're talking about. Hey, you want to test the bottom of that because this wick fill has not happened? I do take that into consideration, especially if you end up having, you know, this is going to be my own drawing, so take it for what it is. But let's just say that we see a big dump and boom, just a real long wick, and then we get something like this. Let's say the candle bodies are actually closing, you know, up here. Oh, this is crude. Forgive me for my artistic abilities that I don't have. But let's just say that this whole area here is wicks, or a wick, I mean. Yeah, I absolutely feel that, even if they're even bigger, right? When they're really big, I especially give them a lot of credit. But let's just say we have just this, oh God, straight down wick, candle body ends up closing back up here, and we start trending to the upside. Yeah, basically as soon as we lose some sort of higher low structure, that's where I start to assume that we're going to come back down and fill this wick. And if not fill it, then get very close. I'd probably be looking at starting to ladder into my position, something like so. Very theoretical at this point, obviously. But yeah, as far as wick fills, that's more so how I like to look at them. But I totally agree that, hey, you know, basically from the top of this wick here to the bottom of this wick here, none of this has been retested, right? Something to consider at least. Yeah, notice where we start getting rejected here. Right around that lower high that I was outlining on the 1 minute. If I bring up wicks, oh no, we actually did get a close slightly above the wick, very close, lost it again right away. Maybe we end up finding support on some sort of a new STUBER fib, right? I'm just curious at this point. Let's watch it on the 1 minute here. Since we had that structure break, are we going to see something like this? You know, after our structure break, come back down, test the STUBER fib pocket, and then we see if we can reach, you know, TP1, maybe even TP2. But yeah, let's watch. I'm curious. You know, it's crazy. Like, I understand that a lot of people do not like trading the shorter time frames. Scalping the 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute is definitely not for everybody. But I strongly feel that the main reason people struggle at trading shorter time frames is because they're looking for a home run trade, right? If you're entering a position on a 1 minute or a 5 minute chart and you're hoping for the size of move you're going to get on an hour or a 4 hour chart, you're just going to get wrecked instead. That's why, like I said, whatever range that I am playing, I'm playing that range until it breaks. So if it's a 1 minute range, yeah, obviously the fib pull is going to be significantly smaller than if I pull one on the 1 hour, for example. And that means your TP levels are going to be much closer, obviously, but that's up to me. You know, if I'm playing a small range on a small time frame, I have to remember that on the opposite end when I'm looking for reasons to get out of the position. And I know I've said this to many of you in the past that, you know, another thing that I like to look for is, or just keep in the back of my head rather, is that, you know, have I been in the position for 10 or more candles? And that rule, the reason I say it that way is just to remember to play what time frame you're playing, right? If I'm trading a 1 minute chart, well, within 10 minutes, I should probably be thinking about downsizing my position. If I'm playing the hourly chart, yeah, maybe I'm not downsizing for 8 to 10 hours kind of a thing. The 4 hour even longer, the daily even longer. So but the number of candles kind of keeps that in order, right? And it's not a concrete rule. I don't have it set in stone. It's not like, oh, 10 candles passed, I have to close my position. But it's just something to keep in the back of the head. Like, am I looking for something a little more than what I should be right now? Just a little risk management side of things. And look at that. See, once again, we get that structure break. Pull back to the 786. There we go. TP1 basically hit because, like I said, I front run my... Yeah, there it goes. Boom. That's 2 in a row. 2 perfect examples live with you that would have hit at least TP1. And yeah, it's only on a 1 minute chart. They're small moves, but just look how well that gets respected. So, you know, doing the same thing on an hourly chart, a 4 hourly chart, stuff like that. It can be a very powerful strategy, right? Yeah, you guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over. And since we had a few examples play out here, you know, the short setup that I'm already in. And yeah, I only have half my position running at this point with my stop loss at break even. So you guys know where I'm at this point. You kind of know what I'm looking for structure and fibs and that sort of thing. So we might actually hit TP2. Boom, there it is, TP2 on that setup as well. Crazy how magical those levels are. But yeah, so I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. I will stick around with you guys for a couple minutes as I end the stream here, if you have any last minute questions, anything like that, but I'm going to wrap up the stream here so that I can start uploading. So, yeah, hopefully you guys found this stream useful. For those of you watching on my YouTube channel a little later, if you are interested in some of these favorite indicators that I've been showing on my charts, plus access to the VIP Discord with live streams such as these put on by not only myself, but also a handful of other very knowledgeable traders in the group. I believe there's usually 2 or 3 live streams per day at this point. There's a handful of coaches, almost a dozen at this point. There is a discount link down below if that's something you're interested in. I'm personally doing most of my trading on the BingX crypto exchange, so if you need a place to get your degen on, I have a link for that as well. With that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.